Hey gang, hope you enjoy this week's show. We have Captain Alex Gorichky in the studio this morning for Catch a Memory. Man, we talked a lot, Alex, about fishing the Space Coast in the wintertime, how to properly work pompano jigs, what to look for along the beaches, and of course, a lot of stuff in the flats too. So hopefully you guys and gals enjoyed this show. Welcome to another edition of Catch a Memory Outdoors right here on WWBC 1510 a.m. We appreciate you guys and gals tuning in every Saturday morning to see what's going on up and down the Space Coast here in Brevard County and abroad, because we do get calls from other places as well and do talk about other places other than Florida's Space Coast. But we appreciate you tuning in this morning. I'm Captain Jim Ross, and my special guest returning for the third? Is this the third time this year we've been lucky enough to have you in?
I think we're rounding it out with 3 times this year.
Yeah, Captain Alex Gorichky has graced us with his presence again today, so you guys and gals have got a whole bunch of information sitting right here next to me that y'all need to take advantage of. We're going to try and delve into some of that and see if we can get some of those little secrets out from Captain Alex. And you know what? If you want to get involved with the show, we'd love to hear from you. 321-632-1000. That's 321-632-1000. Give us a call right here in the studio. And for those of you that are out there watching on Facebook this morning, good morning to everybody that's out there. We really appreciate you guys and gals tuning in, checking out what's going on with us every week. And remember, you can always go back. If you miss a show, you can always go back to our Facebook page and watch it on Catch a Memory Outdoors Facebook. Or you can go to our website, catchamemory.outdoors.com, and you can click on the Listen Live link there if it's between 7 and 9 on Saturday morning. And if it's not between 7 and 9 on Saturday morning, you can listen to the archived shows and just click on that archive tab and pick the date for the show that you want to listen to. So lots of cool stuff really that technology is allowing us to do to share the information and get it out there for you guys and gals. That way, we can all get out there and catch more fish.
Yes.
Because that's what it's all about. Alex, it's been a little bumpy out on the beach, and you, of all of the people I know, this is affecting you the most.
Yes.
Because you are that, I'm going to get some pompano, I'm going to get some whiting, I'm catching my jacks and my bluefish, all those shoreline and wintertime species. This is your, this is your time to shine.
It is.
And man,
the quintessential double dipper.
Yeah. And right now it's just not really helping us.
No.
With what's going on. So, how have you been dealing with it?
Just doing what I can when I can and hanging it up when I can't. So it's crazy though. We come off of the wind and it hadn't been windy for a good handful of days now, but that ocean still refuses to lay itself down.
In those little offshore storms, those last couple of days, it just kind of keep perpetuating that 4 and 5 foot ish sea condition.
And tight, not.
Yeah, it's not like it's spread out.
Yeah, I expected. I actually walked down to the beach last night with a sand flea rake in hand, and expected, of course, to be seas. Of course, to be some swell.
Right.
But I expected to see a little more organized and a little more put together, and no, it was as confused and just washing machine and slick washing machine, which is always weird, but
because it's interesting because yesterday the wind, at least in the lagoon, the wind was northwest. Now they were calling southeast. That wasn't it wasn't happening like that in Port St. John and Titusville area. You know what I mean? Especially up around Titusville, it was rainy, misty, foggy, northwest wind almost all day yesterday. And I launched at Cocoa, so I ended up driving up and down, 20 miles of lagoon yesterday, covering the water. And it wasn't until, it was literally 3:00 in the afternoon, 2:45.
Yeah.
And the wind finally switched around and started to come out of the southeast just a little bit. And what's interesting is, I don't know what it was on the coast because I wasn't out there, but you listen to you turn the marine radio on and they're calling southeast.
Yep.
And it was 180 degrees out of southeast. So
I think that I think that largely has to do with the amount of water, and being coastal like we are, not just coastal, but coastal and flat, basically swamp. And the amount of water we have with mosquito, Indian, banana, all part of this whole little swampy out jut of Florida that we are, just causes that wind to do weird things.
It's kind of interesting because
it's like a June gloom, heavy cloud that as soon as you get a little different wind, gone, and not fog, but like fog, and it's really weird. Yeah.
And you're right. We have this little, it's almost a little microcosm of our own weather, because
We do.
you talk to somebody, like I talked to Glenn Austin yesterday. He called me when I was coming off the water and driving home. And he goes, well, we talk very, very regularly, probably, 3-4 times a week.
Right.
Because I always want to know what's going on down there, and he wants to know what's going on up here. And, if somebody's got a better bite, hey, man, come this way, and or I'll go that way, or, whatever it happens to be, because you're trying to put your customers on fish.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line. Fishing charter clients want to be pulling on something. And so Glenn called me, he goes, well, how was it? And we had talked the day before. And I was like, man, it was just overcast, and we got rained on 3 times, or drizzled on 3 times, and the wind was out of the northwest, and he was like, man, he goes, we were in the sun all day, all day. And I'm like, it's only 50 miles.
Yeah.
Make
all the difference in the world.
But that, as the crow flies, it's probably 35 miles,
right.
40 miles. But, it's amazing that little bit of difference, and he's in sun all day, and we're rain and cloud and fog, and and in fact at one point there was fog all around me.
Right.
There was fog to the south, fog to the north. Justin didn't launch until almost 11 o'clock yesterday. He had an afternoon trip. He didn't have a morning trip. And he called me, and he goes, well, can you see anything in this pea soup? And I'm like, I'm not in it. And he's like, I'm driving to the boat ramp, and I'm in it.
Right.
He wasn't even in the water yet.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting that to the south and to the north, it was just fog, and right in that little pocket was clear.
I think you get into these times where, it doesn't know if it wants to be hot or cold. The water's chilly but not cold. It's warm this, cold there, hot here, and it just causes all kinds of funky stuff.
Yeah, it does.
The good old Cape. That's what we get for living in a swamp, right?
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you, the one, I think the theme of the week has been trout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
if you're in the lagoon, the theme of the week is most definitely trout.
Banana River, Indian River, both, just, and here's what's interesting. We haven't had a good spawn in a couple of years. We've had some small trout, but not this year. This past year, we had clean water conditions most of the year, and man, the trout must have gone crazy with the cheese whiz, if you know what I'm saying. Because there are so many 7 and 8 to about 10-inch trout right now that if we can keep the dolphins from eating every one of them before next year, those fish are going to be 14, 15, 16 inches. And if some of those can make it through to the next year, they're going to be 18 and 20 inches. The spawn we had this year is so impressive.
Yeah.
And it's all due to cleaner water conditions that prevailed throughout most of the year, throughout most of the lagoon.
And undoubtedly has at least a bit to do with a little bit of ground cover coming back too.
Mm-hmm.
And that recruitment. They can spawn all they want. They can make all the babies they want. Those things are swimming around on sand as fry.
They're
cooked. They're
cooked.
Dunzo.
Yeah.
They're eaten.
Before
they could even try to be a trout.
2 years, 3 years ago, before we really started getting some grass back, you would see, especially the puffer fish, just wearing out these little 2 and 3 inch trout, just wearing them out, And every time you saw a puffer fish, it looked like he was smoking a cigar because he had half of a baby speckled trout sticking out
hanging
of his mouth.
out of his mouth. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize when you see habitat loss like that. It's not just the large, big red fish,
right,
or big fat trout, or blah, blah, blah. It's the increasingly over the years recruitment numbers ticking down and ticking down and ticking down, because not just because there's less fish to spawn, that's obviously a major factor. But a large portion of that has to do with them not being able to do what they normally do as little itty bitty wiggly thing, all the way to fry, all the way to 2 or 3 inch trout, until they get at least to where they can fend for themselves a touch, 6 inches, 8 inches or whatever. And forever that was just done in the grass.
Right.
We never even knew they were there. I mean, they were there, but you never saw them.
Yeah. It was a forest.
You might get a couple in a cast net or something like that. Yeah. But, and that's, that habitat loss has a big contributing factor. Yeah. Year after year after year of that recruitment number, whether being up or sliding down. So, and I saw one of the most stark things I can remember from the beginning of the grass loss, the beginning of the slide, was that first year, in the late spring, summer-ish, when the finger mullet and the grass was gone.
Yeah.
And they didn't know where to go. You'd cast net a school of finger mullet, and it'd be half juvenile redfish, juvenile black drum, juvenile trout, just finding somewhere to be. We need somewhere
Croakers.
To be.
Everything
together.
was trying to group together where they don't normally do that. You're
right. They had, prior to that, they'd been dispersed through miles and miles of seagrass, never even see each other, until they go to spawn 3 years later. It was a function of trying to survive, just simply survive.
Yeah.
Schooling up with anything like size, let him get eaten, not me, and that's pretty much what it was. Yeah. And we should, if we continue to see, increase in habitat and increase in grass growth, a good opportunity to see those juvenile reds, those juvenile trout, or the two main ones that, same with the black drums too, that relied so heavily on that seagrass cover. Those numbers start to exponentially, not just, it seems like there's a few here, a few more there, but like, okay, we can go to any canal we want and catch all the 15 to 18 inch trout we want to catch.
Yeah.
And then leave there and go.
And then like you say, in the wintertime, they're always in the deeper water. And then in the springtime, they pull out of those deeper canals and troughs and dredge holes, and they get out on those flats. And then it's topwater time.
Right.
That spring topwater bite, that's the one thing that we would always look forward to is, okay, the fish are in the mood. They're out in the shallow water, and now they're in the mood to chase, not in the mood to just kind of sit there and try to get warm. And if something gets close enough to them, then they might bite it.
Right.
Kind of thing. They're actually out here chasing aggressively, and watch. One of the things that I miss the most, I think about from growing up to the last 8 years, when the habitat went away and the seagrass wasn't there, because we are starting to see some returns in quite a few areas. When the habitat wasn't there, how many times? Just vision this in your mind, Alex. You're paddling, poling, drifting down the flat, and you're throwing your topwater, and you're catching a trout here and a trout there, and then you're looking, but you're scanning. You're always scanning. Where's the mullet? Where's the glass minnows? Is there a redfish push? Do I see a tail? You're always looking for those things, and you always saw that trout strike, and that trout strike it's the way I describe it. It's like if you're sitting in a swimming pool and you want to splash somebody, like as a kid, you'd be splashing one another. You would cup your hand to grab more water and push it right at the water surface so that the water would come off your fingertips and spray the person you were wanting to try to spray. That is the quintessential description of a trout strike. It's that and that spray of water. Where a snook is more of a pop, and a tarpon there's always a roll and a slap and a tail kick.
Yep.
There's different things, but that push, and sometimes that push would be so big you're like, ooh,
that's a real one.
That's a real one right there. Yeah, and so it would give you you even though you never saw the fish, you didn't see the redfish's tail waving. You knew that there was trout on that flat when you started to see those kind of strikes happen. And so you knew it was a place that you needed to be extra careful, super quiet, work methodically through there, and you would catch some fish, because they gave themselves away with that little splash, that little strike splash.
Yeah, a little kick off the top of the
Yeah.
water. Usually accompanied by a needlefish shooting out the side.
Yep. So tail walking or something.
Get me
Or
outta
finger
here.
mullet trying to jump everywhere. Well, guys and gals, we'd love to hear from you. 321-632-1000. Give us a call right here at Catch Your Memory Outdoors. We're going to be right back after this first break with more with Captain Alex Gorichky and myself, Captain Jim Ross. So don't go away. Welcome back. We appreciate you tuning in every Saturday right here to Catch Your Memory Outdoors. This segment of the show is brought to you by Lamb Deck, and if you haven't checked them out, you got to go check out Lamb Deck. They have an EVA non-skid decking for your boat. Really, really comfortable on the feet, and I'll tell you, it just takes if you got a slippery deck or a deck that the gel coat may be getting worn out on, it will absolutely take that away because this stuff is sticky as all get out. It's also cushiony, which is really nice on your back and your knees and your legs at the end of the day. In fact, yesterday we sold our last boat that we had Lamb Deck all over the entire deck, and I've just got on the boat I'm running now, I just have the helm pad.
Right.
And Justin says, on the new boat, are we getting Lamb Deck all over the boat again? I said, absolutely. So just a really, really great product. Hopefully you guys and gals will take advantage of it because you don't have to slip, you don't have to slide, and you don't have to have the backaches and stuff when you get back to the dock at the end of the day. 321-505-4888 is how you get a hold of those guys. And tell them you heard about it right here on Catch Your Memory Outdoors. Alex Gorichky is in the studio with me. For those of you that are just tuning in, we appreciate it. I want to say good morning to some of those out there on Facebook. Good morning to Daniel Hart's on this morning. Darren Bolton is on with us as well. Who else have we got here? I've got a bunch of people lined up here that are on the feed. We got Robin Folsom's on this morning. Good morning, Butch McCoy. Good morning to you, sir. We appreciate you tuning in. We're going to talk a little bit about one of Butch's favorite things, and that's, catching those pompano.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to get into that in just a minute here. Gregory Lund, good morning, sir. There's another guy who likes to catch a couple pompano.
Yes, he does.
Or snook or anything else that happens to be out there. Heidi Stalker's on with us this morning. Bo Bergeron, good morning. My cuz, Craig Lykin, good morning. Jesse Dance, good morning. Yep, last show. You're right, Jesse. Last show of 2024. You are exactly correct. So this is the year-end wrap-up of Catch a Memory for this particular year. Mike Delator's on this morning. So I want to say good morning. I would like to get him on as a guest sometime. We got to work on that in the 2025 season.
I feel like we should have some champagne or something.
He'd be, a mimosa or something.
Yeah.
We should
Made a real interesting show.
yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. That's for sure. So, Alex, we've got a northwest wind. We've got a front coming Sunday, I believe. It's going to give us some of that northwest. Looks like we might get at least 1, maybe 2 days out on the beach, Monday, Tuesday potentially, before it starts to kind of maybe ramp back up and get kind of bumpy again. So we've had east wind. The water's going to be a little turbid. Let's just talk setup. You like to fish from a boat, okay?
Yeah.
So people that fish from the beach kind of use this as a guideline.
Right.
Because it's not going to be the same for you, but you can fish similarly to this. So you and I are generally fishing just outside the surf break, and we're generally using 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 size reel.
Right.
And what length of rod do you like to put with that?
So I'm usually doing a 6.6.
Really?
Yeah.
Short rod.
A little bit shorter. Especially if I'm throwing jigs. I don't necessarily like the long whippy rod. I like something a little more, I guess, tight feeling in your hand, not as floppy and
little faster action, not quite so moderate.
Right, and it and going down to a 6.6 or something like, a little bit shorter tends to draw that in and give you a little bit tighter in your hand. And with the when you're on the beach, jigging's very tough because the jig rides the waves.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to keep contact with bottom. It's not impossible, but it's a very select time that you might be able to get away with it. With the beach fishing for us in the boats, it's as good as it gets.
Right.
Throwing the jig is the best way to cover water, find fish, and lock your fish in and go to work. So there's differences, not just in how you would approach a run out or a sandbar or whatever, boat versus beach. And there's also differences in what you're going to look to use for tackle. And there's a reason why the guy set up with 14 to 16 foot long, 12 foot long surf rods and, sand spikes and the whole 9 yards. It's because it's effective, extremely effective. It gets that stuff up over the waves. You're able to lock that weight down into the bottom, keep your baits presented where you want them at, and work the water in that manner. Whereas us in the boats, we're drifting, we're trolling motoring, we're moving a lot more. And just like if you were fishing in the lagoon or fishing anywhere, the minute you break out the bait and you start putting stuff out, you slow down.
Yeah.
Or stop entirely.
Yeah.
You're using lures, you're searching, you're looking. So those faster types of fishing bode well for you searching as opposed to, and then of course, in the boat, if we find fish, I'll throw out a drop, or a dead stick rod here or something like that. But a lot of times still we're, working that jig. And it just seems to be the way it works the best for us.
So in choosing a jig for fishing from a boat, what style jig do you like?
Whatever style you want, as long as it's pink. No. I always say about soft plastics. Any color you want, as long as it's white.
Yeah.
But no, it really doesn't matter, and they all kind of have the same function. It's ripped off from ice fishing. It's an ice fishing jig. It's meant to actually be fished vertically and bounced, just like we bounce it.
So like a goofy style jig.
Right. I prefer that as opposed to like your bullet style
or
bucktail,
egg heads,
or
boxing gloves, with a little bucktail or a little nylon.
The mylar shooting out the back of it. I personally prefer the traditional goofy jig to that. Although forever all I fished was the bucktails and crappie jigs were the tandem rig green chartreuse crappie jig with a little bit of clam hanging off the back of that thing, and it was about as good as it gets. But even this day, I don't hardly use that anymore. I've gone almost exclusively to that goofy jig.
So with the goofy jig, and so what this is, guys, for those of you that don't know what a goofy jig is, it's I don't know, is there a true name for that style of jig?
According to the mold at doit.com, it's a swim jig. And it is truly actually meant for ice fishing. That's where it first came from.
It's a rear weighted. So look at a gator, crocodile, standard style spoon with a treble hook on the back of it. It's a little thinner in the front. It's a little beefier, wider, and heavier in the back, which when you're casting that style and you're retrieving it, which is a good style for like bluefish.
Right.
It's made to rock, but you're in the case of what I would say most guys that aren't familiar with a goofy jig, but you just tell them, hey, a spoon.
Right.
They're going to think of that elongated, slightly bent, cupped rear end on it, and that wobbling effect or that spinning and twirling effect if you pull it fast. Well, if you took that and you kind of condensed it all in and took the cup out of it almost, because some of it's still got a little bend, but it doesn't really have the cupping in there. So your rear, you still have a rear weighted jig, but a lot of times these aren't meant to be cast and retrieved. They're not meant to spin and flash. They're meant to hop, like you were saying, more in a vertical type of a fashion. And we just happen to be casting them out and then snapping them in an upward fashion so that they jump off the bottom, but then the rear weighting of that bait allows it to settle back down. And because of the angle that it's molded at, it does sort of swim, like you were saying.
It does. You can, if you really get down to it, using, I prefer, 10 to 15 pound braid, and you really feel and pay attention to what's happening with not just whipping the
You're not just whipping
rod
the
tip,
jig,
just to whip the jig, but you feel it. You can feel that thing flutter on the up and the down.
Yeah.
You can, especially on the up, because you're tight line, tight everything. You can feel that thing when you pop it, give a couple little,
and it'll wiggle on its way up.
Exactly.
Like a startled crab or startled shrimp that's trying to flee a predator.
No. And in and of itself, without anything on it, colored really honestly however you want. Like I said, pink seems to always work.
Pink,
chartreuse, pink and white, chartreuse and white. You see them in every different color under the sun. But the pink and the chartreuse tend to hold well. And there's times that even natural colors, we'll go with a little more drab, going into the browns and things
I've got
like
some
that.
brown ones and some gold ones and stuff.
And that'll start working for you. But by itself, it catches a ton of fish. But you can also pair it with a little bait. A teaser is a common thing that you have on the front end of that, and they just catch fish. But the thing is you got to, just like anything else that's artificial, you have to work it, and you have to take the time to work it right, or it's not going to work for you.
So by a teaser, for those of you guys that are, say, offshore fishermen, you're accustomed to a vertical jig, like a vertical speed jig or a slow pitch jig, and they have assist hooks on them. Well, you can put an assist hook or a fly. Some guys call it a fly because it looks like a little fly.
That's how we tie it, too.
Yeah, it's tie it like a fly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just a simple hook with just a little bit of mylar or nylon or something on it. And what you do is you have, on the connection end, you've got a split ring normally, and you put it either on that split ring so that it flutters separately. So you snap the jig up, but the rear weighting of the jig makes it fall back down, and it's fluttering on the fall. But that little hook, that little fly, if you will, that's on that split ring is also wiggling and flashing. So you've got a fluttering, flashing thingy that's attractive to the fish. Or some guys, they don't put it on the split ring. They actually tie a loop knot, and they tie the fly onto the loop of the loop knot. And so it's totally independent. And so sometimes you can actually catch two fish on one cast because the hooks will separate from themselves. So, and of course, especially in the case of jacks, jacks love to eat what other jacks have hanging out of their mouth.
The old 2 for 1.
Yeah, so you get a 2 for deal. Yeah. So that's always a good deal. Well, I tell you what, we're up against our next break, and we've got a caller on the line right after this. So don't go away. We're going to be talking a little bit more about wintertime tactics here on the Space Coast with Captain Alex Gorichky and myself, Jim Ross. So don't go away. We appreciate you tuning in every Saturday right here to Catch Your Memory Outdoors. Appreciate you holding through that break. We want to let you know this segment of the show is brought to you by Sun State Pest Management. If you're looking for a great company to get out there, take care of your bug issues, let Sun State Pest Management come over and manage your issues. It's real easy to get a hold of them. Just give them a call. It's 800-781-7378. That's 1-800-781-7378. Locally owned right here in Brevard County for many, many years. And hopefully you guys and gals will take advantage of getting them out there to take care of anything you have a problem with. I want to go to the phone lines. We got Captain Mike Mann calling in from the Mosquito Lagoon this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you today?
We're doing great, buddy. How are you doing this morning?
Well, we're not getting rained on yet. We did get a little sprinkling on, and the no-seams are about trying to carry us away. Never a problem you think of having in December, late December. But
that's a function of not having enough cold weather. We've had cool, but not cold,
Yeah. Yeah, but I looked at the forecast. Starting on the 1st, we've got cold weather.
It's coming. I'm just tired of swatting mosquitoes because that's what I was doing yesterday, was swatting mosquitoes in the middle of the day. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yesterday, we kept postponing and kept postponing and kept postponing, and then I'm like, look, there's another blob coming in like an hour, and they didn't have rain gear because they were in from out of town, so we just ended up scrubbing. We're going to try and get them back out here in January.
Well, hopefully so.
But yeah, I looked at the forecast. Starting on the 1st, looks like we got 7 days of highs in the 50s and 60s and lows in the 30s and 40s, and 7 days of it should turn the water. That's my hope.
Yeah, definitely. What have you seen this week? Alex and I started the show. I got Alex Gorichky in with me this morning.
What's up, Alex?
Hey.
And we were saying that, it has the word of the week has been speckled trout.
Yeah. We've, as a matter of fact, this morning, Ricky, the husband, his wife brought him on his first fishing charter, and he started out with about a 17, 18-inch nice speckled trout, and then she followed up, said, I only catch crabs and catfish and stingrays, and she got about a 14-inch trout. So they're in here, but they're sitting out a little deeper.
Yeah,
is what I found. Is they're not right on the shorelines where I've had them. You got to move out just a little bit deeper, and they're in that 3.5, 4 foot range.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's what Alex
really
and I have been
trout.
finding in the Indian is that those drop-offs in particular seem to be the places to be.
Yeah, they've been on the drop-offs, and then I had a really good snook bite day before yesterday. I think we we had 2 grand slams, 1 slam on the boat. Everybody had a slam of some sort, and we got it in all the different ways you possibly could. We had redfish, we had trout, we had flounder, we had snook, had black drum, so we just kind of covered all the bases.
Yeah.
But everything was a little bit deeper, and I don't know if there was a high pressure, if it's because of the high pressure system or what was going on, but we hit deeper water, and that's what we're probably going to end up doing in just a little bit today. We're starting down here working edges where I've had the really good bite. It's not as good as it was, but it's not bad.
Well, and it seems like mid-morning it kind of picked up a little bit for me the last 2 days anyway. So,
yep, that's exactly what happened for us. Is it got better later in the morning, which I'm fine with. I'm okay with that because in another week I'm gonna start my trips a little bit later. Start doing that 8 o'clock start time.
Yeah, have them meet you at the restaurant for breakfast in the morning, and then go from there.
Yep, let the sun get up and get a little bit warmer, and let the fish start getting active. But the redfish are starting to school up pretty good. The black drum, I've already seen some really nice black drum schools. It's just the pattern's been kind of yo-yoing because the weather's been yo-yoing.
Yeah. What's your water temp this morning, Mike?
This morning I have got where I'm at 66.9.
It's already
2 days ago it was 62.
Yeah, it's up to 2-3 degrees each day the last couple of days.
Yeah,
I think that's a function of not having quite so cold. Hasn't been quite so cold at night because there for a while last week it was dropping 2 or 3 degrees every night, and then this week it seems like it's warming 2 or 3 degrees every night.
Yeah, it's it's cool, but it's not cold.
Yeah,
and hopefully it stays cool enough at night to keep it from getting back up over that 70-degree range. We'll see what happens. It's just, if you don't like the weather, wait. It'll change.
Yeah, that's for sure. What are you guys throwing this morning, lives or artificials?
We are throwing live this morning. We've got 1/8-ounce jig head with a shrimp on it.
Yeah, I tell you what, that is like my go-to anymore for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, when the snook get fussy at the inlet, 1/8-ounce jig head, shrimp.
Yep.
Pompano on the beach,
it's
whiting
kind
on
of
the
hard to
beach,
beat.
1/8-ounce jig head, shrimp. Trout, redfish in the lagoon, black drum in the lagoon, sheephead in the lagoon. Although yesterday, I was fishing a residential canal yesterday, and a fellow was just down from me on an area that I had already gone through, and we caught a couple of fish. And then he come in there behind me and was throwing fiddler crabs and just started whacking the sheephead.
Right.
I'm like, man, we just went through there with shrimp, and we got 2 sheephead and a couple of drum, but this guy came in there and pulled like 8 straight sheephead out from that same stretch of mangrove shoreline. And I was like, well, there's a definite difference, There's a definite difference.
Break out them sand fleas on them.
Yeah.
The only time I'll switch off of that 1/8-ounce jig heads, I might bump up to a 1/4 if I've got a little bit more current.
Yeah.
And I may even go to a 3/4 sometimes when I got a lot more current, so you can get it down, especially when you're targeting some of the, like the black drummer stuff. A lot of times I'll go to a little heavier jig head just to get it down through the current. And kind of, you don't have to worry as much about the drift. You can pitch it up shore and let it kind of just bounce down. It's gonna get lower in the water column.
Yep. It's going to stay pinned down to the bottom a little bit better.
But I'm excited. I can't tell you the last time I saw a 7-day forecast like what we got coming up. It's been, for a while it's been warm, cold, warm, cold. You get 3 days of warm, 3 days of cold. It just kind of yo-yos back and forth. So I'm pretty excited to see this. I'm thinking it's going to trigger some of the old school fishing that we used to have here, 10, 12 years ago, especially the number of redfish I'm seeing.
Well, I don't know what happened to our redfish, Alex, but last week we had plenty of redfish.
Yeah.
This week we caught 2 all week. Every day this week, and I've only caught 2 redfish.
You know what? I think a lot of what happened
and haven't seen them. So I think they all ran up to your place, Mike.
Right.
Well, that, or I think what's happened is I think they kind of dropped off. They do that in December, usually late December. That last little cold snap we got, I think it pushed them off the flats, and I think they ended up moving, and they're going to pop up after this week into schools. Why do I have a guy coming in front of me?
Because he doesn't have any etiquette.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
We got another little trout on. Nothing huge, but I told Ricky he got bonuses if he could hook a fish while I was on air. But I think that's what happened, because we had the same thing happen here, and you would still find some singles here and there, but the shoreline that was loaded up with them just didn't have a whole lot. So I think they kind of dropped off into the main, into the deeper water, and they're probably going to schools are probably going to pop up in about 4 more days where there weren't really any fish in the typical areas. We're going to have those big schools again. Yeah,
that's the one thing about when the water cools down, it gets down around 60, you really start getting schooling activity with those redfish. And on those days whenever you get a favorable sun condition, you really get a good bite because of that.
Yeah, you get that cold water, and I think we're going to have water in the 50s in another 10 days probably, high 50s. And I think with that going, Amber's got one on. Had one on. She had one on, and she had to slap them, no see them, and lost the fish. So set the hook before you slap the fish next time.
There you go.
Yeah.
But, I think that's going to, we start getting some of those sunny days, it's going to be on. I mean, that's just like one of the coolest things about here is that wintertime January fishing. It's cold. You get a good sunny day with some light winds. You don't want no wind, but a little light wind, put a little ripple in the water. And those fish, the schools of redfish tend to not run as much either when the water's a little colder. They'll move, but they're not going to do those big galloping 100-yard runs that they like to do in the spring and fall.
Yep, you got that right. Well, buddy, how does somebody get a hold of you if they want to get on the water with you in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I have a couple days available in January and a lot in February. You can give me a call at area code 386-295-5991. You can go right to my website, fatfishguide.com. Follow me on Instagram, CAPT, Mike Mann with 2 N's, and on Facebook, Fatfish Guide Service. Guys, get out there, catch a memory, and have a safe and happy New Year.
Isn't that the truth? Thanks for the call this morning and the report from Mosquito Lagoon, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Get out there. Oh, and go dog.
Good.
Go dog.
Take care now.
All right, bye.
Yeah, I didn't realize, Paul and Mike were talking when we were in that last break. I didn't realize that Georgia lost their quarterback or their starting quarterback. So a lot of injuries in the colleges, college ranks this year. It seems like.
Yeah, and it's about to get spicy over the next handful of days to see what happens, what shakes out.
Yeah. Well, guys and gals, we're going to take our next break. When we come back, Alex Gorichky and myself are going to be talking a little bit more about this wintertime fishing on the Space Coast. So don't go away. Appreciate you tuning in. This segment of the show is brought to you by Engel Coolers. Engel Coolers still has some leftover Black Friday / Christmas sales going on. Go to the website, engelcoolers.com. Check them all out. And they've got a whole bunch of really, really cool stuff that is in their clearance item drop down as well. So, little scratch and dent. Hey, you're going to put a scratch in it anyways, kind of the way I look at it. If you can save 50, 80, $100 because it's got a scratch in it, might as well.
Yep.
So check them out at engelcoolers.com, and we appreciate them sponsoring this segment of the show. Alex, we were just kind of talking about during the break, the duck hunters. There's been some duck hunters out on the river.
Yeah.
The Indian End, Sykes Creek. Excuse me. This week, heard quite a few shots going off here and there. What's interesting though is, so yesterday we had a whole flock. I was sitting on the shoreline just north of the barge canal, and had a whole flock of mottled ducks, like 12 of them. You don't normally see them grouped up,
right?
Quite that large of a group. Normally it's just pairs or sometimes 4, but we had 12 of them fly right out over the top of us yesterday. And I was thinking to myself, boy, Jeff Cranick and Blair Wiggins would really like to be sitting here right now, as well as a lot of other guys who duck hunt,
I was gonna say.
But I'm going to get a chance to get to doing that this coming week on the 31st. I have a hunt.
Oh, good.
That I'm going to get to go on with Jeff and Blair and the guys. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to that because I haven't had a chance to get out this year, and I'll get my 1 or 2 days of duck hunting a year in, and that's it's always a lot of fun though.
Yeah.
And actually, I went over to a buddy's house, a friend of the show, friend of myself, Jesse Dance. I went over to his place a couple weeks ago, and he set up his clays, and we shot a little bit, and I'm feeling much more comfortable with going this year. I feel like I have a little bit better idea of what I'm doing. The last 2 years, I've just kind of been throwing the gun up in the air and pulling the trigger, and if something fell, hey, I got lucky. It's really, honestly, I'm really haven't been the best overall shot, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
This year, I'm hoping that my bird count to shell count is a little more closely related.
A little more even.
Yeah, and not 3 or 4 or 5 birds to a box of shells, which is what has been the case the last 2 years. So, but I wanted to say thank you again to him for kind of getting me a little better tuned in, and it all boils down to understanding your equipment.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. You have to, the more you use it, the more you understand it, the better more proficient you get with it. And, going back to those goofy style jigs that you were talking about earlier, feeling the flutter, feeling the bite,
feeling the jig at all.
Yeah. Feeling the jig at all.
Yeah.
And knowing whether you've got a fish on it or not. That is a huge part of it. And it's just time on the water.
Oh, yeah.
That's really all it is time on the water, practicing with that particular style of jig. And so with the goofy style jig, I throw them half the time. The other half of the time, I throw a half a shrimp on a jig head.
Yeah.
Because both are very effective.
Extremely.
And it depends on what my customer has the ability to do. Jigging is not an easy thing.
It's not something you pick up and do immediately.
No, it's not.
Oh,
easy.
you can do it, but you're not going to be doing it effectively or correct.
Right. So that little snap to get the flutter right and that sort of thing. A lot of guys have a tendency to want to kind of reel too much instead of snapping and letting it jump and flutter down and jump and flutter down. It's almost like a walk the dog topwater plug where you have to leave just a little bit of slack in there so that it can do what it's supposed to do. If you just reel and twitch and you don't twitch, pause, reel, twitch, pause, reel, so that the lure can, you've twitched the lure, it's going forward now. But if you don't let the slack occur, it can't curve to the right or the left to get that walking back and forth style. And the same thing happens with the jig and the flutter, the snap up, and then the little bit of drop of the rod tip and feeling it on the fall has a lot to do with it. And it's you're not totally slacklining.
No.
But you're not leaving your rod tip up and then letting it fall against a tight or taut line, if you will, because the flutter isn't the same at all. And so for yourself, you've been doing this for years, but for a guy that's just starting, it's finding that happy medium. It's just enough tightness between the jig and the rod tip to feel the flutter on the way down, not too tight and not too loose.
Yep. And a big part is just getting to where you feel the jig at all. Mm-hmm. And one of the most probably common mistakes is And it's the same. Honestly, I literally just finished my my article for February for Merritt Island's their local paper magazine, and it was about sight fishing, obviously for February, and in that and anywhere across the board, one of the most common issues and one of the most easy things to fix about your fishing is slow down. And the minute you think you're going slow slow down.
Yeah, exactly.
And then after you've slowed yourself down 3 or 4 times, then you can actually slow down enough to do something.
Yeah.
You know, because you got to give these things time to do what they do. And one of the biggest things with the pompano jig is people just work it too fast, and before you know it, that thing's bouncing mid water column,
And you're not on the bottom.
and you're
anymore.
nowhere near the bottom.
Right.
And you're wearing out all the ladyfish and jacks and Spanish
and bluefish,
and losing piles of jigs to toothy fish. But you're not finding those pompano or the whiting or anything or drum
and
or anything
just,
else.
when I was out on the beach just before the wind kicked back up, we were starting to get some really nice pompano.
Oh, yeah.
And some, good numbers. I wouldn't say size, but good numbers of pompano. 12, 13 inches on average. Occasionally you get a 15-incher. And one day we had a permit.
Yeah.
A nice, about a 5-pound, 4 or 5-pound permit. But the bull whiting started to show up. So all of those 8, 9-inch and 10-inch whitings, I mean, they were still kind of there, but we were starting to get those 12-inch,
Right.
13-inch whitings.
Yep.
And those are I really like whiting. That's one of my favorite eating fish. And a whiting off the beach is a, no, there's not a lot of yield off of that fish.
No, but it is.
But if
good.
you get 10 of them, you got a heck of a little fish fry for yourself and your wife,
all the fish tacos you know need right
telling
there.
you, I'm telling you. And they're so light, so fluffy, flaky, what?
Yep.
It's just that meat is just really, really good.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
primo.
love whiting. Love whiting.
Yep.
So it's
And-
one of the fish I really like to chase, even though they're not this grand. They're not tarpon. They're not bull reds.
Right.
They're not a 35-inch snook. But that little, I get excited about seeing that little 12-inch bull whiting.
We had a couple of whiting, good drops on whiting several weeks ago when we had that calm down. And I don't care who you are. You catch 100 fish, 150 fish, you're having a good time.
That's a good time.
You need to just hang up fishing poles and pick up a golf club or whatever you want to do if you can't have fun catching 100 fish. I don't care how big they are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just the way it is. And like you said, you don't have to hang your hat, so to speak, on doing the pompano jig and beating yourself up over not doing it. You can easily be just as effective with that half a shrimp on a jig head, just dragging it along the bottom.
Yeah.
A little pop here or there, and it works just as well, if not better sometimes.
Yeah.
And you can make fishing as complicated or as easy as you want. You can go hang out on a bank and throw a chunk of mullet in the water and catch a redfish. Or you can pull around for 7 hours with a fly rod in your hand and be lucky to take a shot at a redfish.
Yeah. Yep.
You can make these things as complicated or as easy as you want, and it's up to the end user to figure out where they fall in those categories.
Yeah. That is the truth.
It's not necessity. It's not a necessity to make it complicated on yourself.
So before we go to this next break, let's talk. You talked line size. You said you like that 10-pound test, which is about 4-pound diameter braid, or do you ever go up to 6-pound, or just pretty much stay with the 4-pound diameter, 10-pound braid?
Yeah,
Right.
4 or 10.
Cuts through lighter, cuts through the water better. Still got plenty of strength in case you get a bigger fish on.
And you can dump a reel on a cast with that little light jig.
Yeah, you can cast it forever.
Yeah.
What about leader size?
So I tend to go a little bit longer. I'm usually running the moss green for my line color, my main line
Me
color.
too. Yeah.
The brighter, the whites or the yellows or blues or things like that. You might even want to step the leader, especially if you're talking pompano, especially if the water's clean.
Yeah.
They got eyes, and they got really good eyes. That's like their main thing. They're so neurotic and zippy all over the place that they can't smell nothing. They can't, if they're smashing their face in the dirt, they might be able to pick up the whiff of a little crab or a sand flea. Those things see it. That's what it is. That's their gig. They might feel a little, but they see it. And what I'm usually doing is not. I'm not a big one for the FG knot and 8 foot a leader kind of thing. Even with my long leaders, 4 foot, somewhere in there, something that you can still put it this way. I like to be able to hang my jig or my hook on my hook keeper or on the reel seat area somewhere in there, and not have a bend in my leader.
Yes.
So meaning my leader's outside, so I'm less than 6 foot.
So I'm normally only 30 to maybe 35 inches on average. And I like 15 and 20 pound fluorocarbon.
Yeah, and I
myself.
do 20 pound fluorocarbons, and for a long time I'd go with the because we're burning through spools and spools of it. It ain't cheap. And Seagar hasn't found it necessary to send me piles of line yet. I don't know why, but I for a long time got away with or used even the like non-leader material, fluorocarbon, or even trying mono, and honestly spend the money. That 20 pound Seagar or what Blue Label or whatever you want to put your favorite one in that list.
Yep.
Insert
fluorocarbon leader here.
Right. The abrasion resistance, the stiffness, the clarity, it's just unbeatable, and it's really is.
And then before break, what weight of jig do you like?
3/8 usually.
3/8? Okay. Sounds like a plan. 3/8 it is. No. We're going to be right back after this top of the hour break with a whole nother hour of Catch Your Memory with Alex Gorichky and myself, so don't go away. Welcome back. Top of the hour for the second hour of Catch Your Memory right here on WWBC 1510 AM. And, of course, on Facebook, you can get us out there on the Facebook feed at Catch Your Memory Outdoors. You can get us at catchyourmemoryoutdoors.com and listen live on the stream, or you can go to the website and click on catchyourmemoryoutdoors.com, click on the archive tabs, and listen to some of the older shows if you get a chance. We're going to go right back to the phone lines. Captain Alex Gorichky is in the studio with me. For those of you guys and gals that are just joining us here, we're going to go to the phone lines. Captain Jeff Kranick and Captain Blair Wiggins are calling from the marsh, and let's see what's going on with the duck hunting this morning. How you guys doing today?
Guys, what's going on?
We are just enjoying some talk about surf fishing with pompano and whiting and various other species. And, I figured we have the absolute master at it when it comes to Space Coast beach fishing. So why not talk about what it is that he does best? So Alex is in here schooling everybody on how to get rigged up and how to properly use goofy jigs this morning.
Yeah, Captain Pepe, he fished the sub base at night 3 nights in a row this week,
and
just absolutely hammered the pompano.
So they're in there. Okay.
They're in there.
Knew it.
So.
Well, that means we have to.
Little birdie told me that sand fleas were flying off the shelf, and there wasn't that many people fishing the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how are the ducks flying for you this morning?
They are not flying good for us at all.
Not happening, huh?
We left the ramp at 4:00, and the 3 holes that I was pushing for all had people in them already.
Wow.
Yeah. So Blair and I did a little scouting last week and said, well, I got all these holes marked, and yep, we got flashed off of every one of them.
Well, you guys should have spent the night out there.
Yeah. Well, Pepe spent the night in Headwaters, so he was close to 2 limits the last time I talked to him of ringers.
Nice.
And Broadmoor's going off, but we've got our big hunt Tuesday coming up. So I told you we got 4th pick in Broadmoor.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I am looking forward to that. Alex and I were talking about that during the break, that I was going to get a chance to get out there on Tuesday and squeeze off a couple of rounds and hopefully get a couple of birds down in the process. I'm really, really looking forward to that, because it's since last year I did a little better last year, and then I've got a little tune up from a good friend, Jesse Dance, and so I'm hoping that I make a decent showing for myself this year and keep up with you guys.
Well, we haven't had a banner season like we did last year. I mean, we're shooting a few birds, but we're having to travel for them, some different lakes. And It's just been one of those years. I think I heard Alex say, the yo-yoing with the weather.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've been fighting with out in the marsh, too.
It sounds like there's a couple of shots going off in the background. Are you guys around you having some luck, it sounds like?
Sounds like we're close to Broadmoor, so they're in North 1 and 2 and 3. Sounds like they've been having a good shoot.
Gotcha.
And while I got you on the phone and him here, I have never trolled for crappie. Blair took me out yesterday morning. We had a great time.
Awesome.
It's like trolling offshore with micro lures.
And when the rod goes down, you get just as excited.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. We caught some nice slabs yesterday. Matter of fact, we just finished a bag of fresh crappie for breakfast.
Very cool.
Along with the eclair that Blair brought me.
Eclair and crappie.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Eclair, yeah.
The breakfast of champions.
Yeah, it is.
Cream-filled eclairs and fried
we're
crappie.
waiting for these college kids to go back to school, and things will settle down. There won't be as many people in the marsh.
Right.
So, not that there's anything wrong with college kids, but
Well, have you
they've
put any?
got way more energy than we do.
I hear you. Have you had any birds down this morning?
Blair shot one behind us. We just need to go find it.
Mm-hmm. But you're not in the X that you wanted to be in, it sounds like.
No. We like I said, we have to fall back to one of our holes. We call this one Razor because I lent my weed razor to a buddy of mine, and he lost it. The rope broke.
Oh, man.
And it's somewhere at the bottom of this pothole. We just haven't found it yet.
Well, when it dries out, you should be able to find it.
It's feathers. Thought I missed them. Looks like somebody, looks like a pillowcase.
Jeez.
College girl pillow fight.
He dusted that one, huh?
He did dust it, so.
Well, I saw bluebills and scoters yesterday. I had a flock of 12 mottled ducks come over the top of me yesterday morning, about mid-morning. So I'm kind of
sounds like a big old family group that hasn't broke up yet.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited for our Shiloh hunt a little later in the year. Hopefully, we continue to see that number of birds on the river.
Well, I got some good reports from the Shilohs. I mean, they're shooting a lot of bluebill and they're shooting a lot of redheads. So,
I don't think I've ever seen a redhead before.
A what?
I don't think I've ever seen a redhead before. Or maybe I didn't know what it was.
They're pretty birds. Captain Pepe has shot a few hens this year already out in the marsh, but I know the guys up in Shiloh 1, 2, and 3 have been killing them there too.
Gotcha. Well, that bodes well.
The thing is they come in with the bluebills, so you really got to watch it. I'm pretty sure the hunt you pulled for that is after it goes to 2 birds a person, so got a little leeway there.
Hopefully so.
Well,
All righty.
That's all we got for you guys.
Well, sounds like real quick before we let you go, what color jigs were the specs liking best yesterday?
All colors. Yeah, they were hitting on them all. They really liked the orange, but every rod was getting knocked down. So it was a good time. I don't know if you've ever done it, Jim, but
I haven't done it in a minute, so it's time for us to get together and go.
Well, you're the one with the real job now. So.
Yeah. So you're calling me the anchor. Y'all are dragging anchor. Well, got to get me one of these. I got to get me one of these jobs where I can quit at age 55 instead of just starting about.
And while I got you on the phone, I just want to let all the listeners know. No, I'm not going to tell you where the ducks are at, and you don't want to book a charter.
No, none of that, huh? None of that. No. Okay.
Been getting a couple of those a day.
All right, buddy. Well, we appreciate the call this morning. You guys enjoy the rest of the morning, and we'll talk with you soon.
See ya.
Take care. That's That's the hard part about duck hunting is that, some days you get it right and you're in the spot and the birds are flying over you. And some days you sit up and you can see them and they're way over there or they're way back that way. And you're like, they're not anywhere close to being in range and they just won't come any closer.
They refuse to do it.
And you're like, if we had been 400 yards that way, we'd be on them. But it's amazing how that is a science in itself, just trying to get set up in where the birds are going to fly that day. Yeah. And I honestly, from what I can tell, it's a coin toss as much as it is knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not like you and I going down the flat and going, okay, we're driving along. Oh, there's the bait, there's the birds, there's the whatever, there's the indicators. And we stop and we pull in a fish. It's different. You already have to be there and hope you're in the spot, because you don't just get up and move around.
Nah.
You start moving around and you'll never get within shot distance of a bird, So, well, let's take our next break, get this out of the way, and when we come back, we're going to talk a whole lot more with Captain Alex Gorichky and local Alliance fishing charters.
Hey, let's do it.
We're going to be right back with more Catch Your Memory after this. Welcome back. This segment of the show is brought to you by Petrucci Insurance. It's almost a new year. It's time for you to get new insurance, or at least check on your insurance to make sure that they're not charging you too much and giving you too little. So call Petrucci, 321-632-1200. That's 632-1200. Call Petrucci Insurance and have them do a rate quote for you and make sure that you're properly covered for your boat, your car, your house. Make sure that you're not getting overcharged and undercovered. Make sure that you're not getting charged for more coverage than what you need for your particular scenario. They'll help you work through all of these scenarios and save you money. So call Petrucci Insurance. They've been a friend of the show now for multiple years. Don and his crew do a great job trying to get you, the best possible policy at the least possible price so that you're not wasting money. That's what they do day in and day out. So call Petrucci Insurance, 321-632-1200, and make sure that you have the best possible policy for whatever it is that you're trying to cover. You know what? Let's do real quick. Let's get the fishing and boating conditions out there for everybody. So this morning, Alex, we have southeast at 10 to 15.
As long as you're there and not over there, because if you're over there, it's going to be something completely different.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, in the Indian River, it's probably blowing west right now.
west at 5.
Seas inside of 20 miles are supposed to be about 4 to 5 feet with a dominant period of 7 to 8 seconds. So right now, the 13-mile buoy out of Ponce was showing 65-degree water temp and showing 5 feet at 7 seconds, which is absolutely no fun. The 4-mile buoy out of Port Canaveral was showing 65 degrees as well, and it was showing 3-foot seas at 7 seconds, which is a little better. The current conditions at the 20-mile buoy is 5 foot at 6 seconds, so you're not going to be out there anytime soon. And the 6-mile buoy out of Fort Pierce was basically the same thing, 5 foot at 7 seconds. Not much fun. Water temperature at the 20 buoy is 75 degrees. Water temperature at the 4-mile buoy out of Canaveral is 65. The 13-mile buoy out of Ponce is 65. And the 6-mile buoy at Fort Pierce is 69. So, once again, in using that 68, 69 degree water temperature range as your cobia zone, man, if we can get offshore, I think they're going to be right here on the Space Coast.
There's a sliver of that right water somewhere in there.
Yeah, a little sliver of water, and it should be probably right over that 70 to 90-ish foot reef line. Wrecks, reefs in those depths. I'm thinking that, if and when the next offshore day is possible, there should be some good cobia catches that go on. Is my thought process on it.
Definitely worth keeping the eyes open as you're cruising.
And keep a cobia jig tied up. You may be going out there to drag ballyhoo. You may be going out there to dunk some sardines or squid down on the reef, but keep that jig rod ready, or that pitch bait rod ready, just in case that cobia or two pops up next to the boat. That would be my recommendation. Just looking at these water temps, that it just screams reef wreck cobia to me. It's just screaming that right now. So That 5 at 6 seconds is screaming,
screaming something else.
screaming, stay at the dock. But when it lays down, give it a shot. Current western edge of the Gulf Stream, 47 nautical miles due east of Ponce, 33 due east of Port Canaveral, and 25 due east of Sebastian. And the surf temps, 66 at Ponce, 65 at Cocoa Beach, 68 at Sebastian. Tides look like this. We got a low tide at 12:07 p.m. and a high at 5:44 p.m. and then a low at Sebastian at 12:01, basically noon, and then high tide at 5:51. And the Solunar tables, which are the best times to hunt and fish, presented by All About Archery down in Melbourne. I want to say hey to Tino and Danny and the gang down there. Appreciate them for sponsoring this segment of the show. 9:22 a.m. is the major to 11:22 a.m. So right after the show's over would be a good time to
You got
get
an
out there,
hour to hitch up the boat, get your rods ready, eat something, and go.
cast a line. And then the minor this afternoon is from 3 to 4, which should be hopefully, a still fairly warm time of the day. So anyway, want to let you guys and gals know that that's when you need to kind of plan on going. So Alex, after talking about this scenario, and we were talking about preferred water temps for the cobia, what are your preferred water temps for whiting and pompano?
I like that mid 60, the mid to upper 60. You start seeing the real numbers of fish, it seems like, when you crack 70 degrees. You get below 70.
Below 70.
Yeah, you start getting into the 60s, and then you get too low, and it gets a little too chilly.
I was gonna say, so what do you consider your bottom end for pompano and whiting?
The lower 60s start
61. 62?
Start to get a little bit different, and whiting seem to be a little more willing all the way through. Whereas the pompano seem to get a little more jittery. They, along with a lot of other fish, are spending their year in an eternal migration, basically.
Yes.
So, yes, you might find schools of them here or there, the summer ones that get in the river sometimes and stuff like that. But like a tarpon, that fish is, a large, full-grown adult tarpon, is in a state of perpetual movement. And that perpetual movement tends to center around envelopes of water temperature more than bait availability or anything else. It seems like, with the tarpon, it's as that 78 to 80 degree water creeps north and keeps creeping north all the way up to the Carolinas, they're going with it.
They just keep following it. Yeah.
And then they shimmy down as it starts dropping and go. And it's the same for the pompano. They're kind of well, not necessarily the revert of it, but they're spending their winters in South Florida, or us, from us south, and then they're migrating north to the Carolinas and stuff like that as summer progresses, and then vice versa in the fall. So I always break it down with fish to, there's just a few things that they got to do. One is eat and don't get eaten. Don't become food and find food.
Right.
2 is make more fish, because you got to make more fish. And 3 is be in the right water. You're not going to catch a bass 40 miles offshore because it can't live in salt water.
Right.
You're not going to catch a marlin in a lake because it can't live in fresh water. Well, the same can be said for a fish and water temperatures. There's always a low threshold. There's always an upper threshold. You get outside of that comfort zone, and you're either not finding the fish, or the fish that you do find aren't happy, aren't willing to eat or do their thing. So knowing that.
And the numbers outside of the comfort window are usually much less.
Right. And we were, like you just said about the cobia, that sliver of water seems like it's the right temperature. And that doesn't mean if the water is 82 and it's the middle of summer, you can't catch a cobia.
Right.
There's still cobia there. You go to a wreck, you might pull up a sea, or I shouldn't say sea bass, because we don't get to catch those anymore.
Pull up a red snapper.
You can pull up a red snapper of any size, and there could be 10 cobia following the thing up, and that's upwellings or not, or whatever. Completely outside of what you would consider that 68 to 72 degree perfect temperature window.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that, knowing those things about an individual species helps you become a bit more proficient at targeting said individual species. And, with fishing, as we said earlier, you can make it as complicated or as uncomplicated as you want. You can take it from the most simplest form and turn it into the most frustrating, complicated thing by putting a fly rod in your hand.
Yep.
And the same, the same can be said for, that drilling down even just a little bit on a couple different species will give you an opening to a window, but actually drilling down on one species, what is its exact water temperatures? It's like what bop, 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 bop. That can make you more successful in targeting a singular thing. And pompano are a great example of that. They are one of the most frustrating fish you can ever try to figure out. If you want to tear your hair out trying to understand a fish, start pompano fishing.
Yeah.
Because it's like going shrimping.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a shrimp move tonight instead of that night? Or and you never figure it out.
Or what makes them move even on the beginning of the tide versus the end of the tide, or vice versa.
And then the next night
you can be there on the right tide on the right night and just miss the window by an hour.
Yep.
And you dipped 5 gallons of shrimp, and your buddy got there 2 hours later and he only got 1 gallon.
Yep.
Or
None.
vice versa.
Yeah.
I've had nights where we were like, hey, you know what? When this is when I was much younger, but we, when you're 20, 22, 24 years old, you do things on a whim. You don't necessarily think things through as well as you possibly could. So it would be 9 o'clock at night and we would be drinking beer and we would go, hey, let's go shrimping, because you didn't have to be anywhere. It's Friday night. You didn't have to be anywhere until Monday morning, you had basically 48 hours unsupervised. And so you were half cocked, and now you're going to get your shrimping gear, and you're going to drive to Oak Hill, or you're going to drive to Titusville Railroad Bridge, or you're going to do what you're going to do. And some days you slayed, and some days you sat there all the rest of the night and finished all your beer and had nothing but empty beer cans in the bottom of the boat.
Yep.
And no shrimp to show for it.
Yep.
And burned kerosene out of the lamp until it would burn no more, till you had to change the mantles in it. That's just the difference between paying attention and doing it on a whim. And like you say, the more you focus down and the more you drill down on a specific species, the more you can learn about it. Then you can start to equate those to other species as well.
Exactly. And it is true. The further you get down into it, the more you understand about kind of the whole, how everything associates together, and why you see certain things the way that they are.
Yeah,
it helps. So, great.
That is for sure. Well, guys and gals, we're gonna go ahead and take our bottom of the hour break, and when we come back, we got a little bit more with Catch Memory Outdoors. So don't go away. We're gonna be right back. Welcome back. We appreciate you tuning in. This segment of the show is brought to you by Direct Graphics. And if you guys and gals are looking for a banner, a vehicle wrap, a sticker like the one that we just got, our new Catch a Memory Outdoor stickers, for those of you that are out there on the Facebook feed, you can kind of see it. Yeah, come back into the light. Graphics Direct designed these stickers that we use. We put on our boats, and we use them as fish measuring tapes, bumper stickers, any kind of vinyl thing that you need or printed item that you need, they can take care of. So give them a call. Let them design something for you. If you got a design in your head, they can put it down on the computer, build the design for you, and away you go. That's Direct Graphics. They're in Cocoa, 321-631-1001. Tell them you heard about it right here on Catch Your Memory Outdoors. So we're also at our Starbright Cleaning Solutions portion of the show.
Scrub.
So you've even got your Starbright hat on today. What is one of the things that you, as a charter captain, cannot live without in the Starbright product lineup?
I'll grab it right out. I can already see it. This right here.
The salt off kit, huh? Yep. That little applicator that you can plug into the hose and then screw onto your motor.
exactly what I do right there. That is a must every time I flush my engine, which is every time my engine runs. So I run just a good shot right through there. And as of now, we don't have any cooling issues.
No issues.
So
one of the things that I do, so I'll fill the cup all the way up.
Yeah.
I run until I start to see the foam coming out of all of the orifices on my outboard. My P tube on my 300 is generally the last where I see the foam coming out of. It'll come out of the exhaust and the prop, and it'll start falling out of other places first. But when I get it all the way up and it's run all the way through the whole coolant system, all through the top of the motor, and it's coming out the P tube, pitot tube, P-I-T-O-T, I think, or something.
Right, yeah.
But we just call it the P tube,
The P tube,
P-E-E tube. When I start seeing it coming out of there, then I know it's all the way through the motor. I then shut the water off, put my spray nozzle on, and then I spray the whole rest of the boat down. And my trailer brakes, my axles, anything that's metal in particular, but my brakes, rims, all of that in particular, that's the next thing I go to. Then I use the rest of what's in the container, and I just spray it all over the top deck of the boat. And what's interesting is, since I've started doing that, all of my lift and twist latches that used to have little incrustations of salt and grit and stuff in them, man, they work so much better now. They just work so much better with that salt off going in there and helping to strip that stuff and get it out of there.
There's a lot of great products that these guys make.
I don't know of one you don't need.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there was a need for every single one of them that they designed.
This right here, the Salt Off happens to be one of those ones that doesn't take a lot of elbow grease, doesn't take anything other than dumping it in the applicator, the squirt bottle thing, hooking it up and letting it run, and it does its job extremely well. Yeah. Extremely well. And
so Orson Tarver is one of the fellows who listens to the show quite a bit. He's a good friend of mine, and I know a lot of the listeners out there know Orson. Orson actually takes his and he trims his motor all the way up. He flushes it and then disconnects it and leaves his motor trimmed up because he's got it on a lift.
Right.
So he doesn't want his foot down in the
right,
water.
Yeah.
He says that when he trims his motor back down by allowing it to marinate, if you will, in there, that he sees even more stuff come out.
I'm sure.
The next time he goes to use the boat.
Yeah.
It strips all of those little deposits out of there, and you get back to nice, clean, not cylinder walls, but coolant walls again.
Yeah, because you have a water jacket basically that runs around. It cools your engine, and that water jacket is pumping salt water through it constantly. If the engine's running, it's pumping, or your engine goes kaboom. And keeping those passages and everything, and I'll even go to the big one is, in my opinion, especially with flushing an engine, which using the Salt Off gives you the ability to flush kind of super flush. But even just solely flushing your engine, the longer you let that thing sit there and cool down and get dry inside and ... the less effective just plugging it in and going is. If I'm coming home and it's straight on the trailer, straight down the road, straight to the house, I'll hook it up. I'll run the Salt Off just through the your port to be able to flush it from the hose. Not turn it on, not anything. Everything's still hot in there. Thermostat might not be still open, but there is passages so that it gets water. It clears both sides. But everything's hot. Everything's not dry, not caked, not filmed, not anything. And you're running that Salt Off through, and
when you're disconnecting your flush off, because you're running a Yamaha,
right?
Like I'm running a Yamaha. You disconnect the little flushing port, the little flushing tube. When the water coming out of there is still hot, you're doing it right. You're doing it right.
Yep.
If it cools down to the point where it's cold when it's coming out of there, then it's like, I've kind of waited a little too long.
Right.
And in some cases, I mean, if you're trailering from the port back to Orlando, now these are ideal scenarios. If you're trailering all the way back to Orlando and you have to get to your storage lot and then wash it or whatever, it's going to cool down.
Yeah.
It's going to. But the sooner you can get the salt off into the motor, the more effective it can be.
Yeah. And what I'll actually do it, and I mean, I don't know exactly what the book says. I don't feel you should be plugging a hose up to the top of it and running.
No, you're not supposed
turn
to.
the key, not supposed to do it. However, what I'll do, especially if mine cools, is I have a splitter in my hose. It pumps a lot of water, and I'll put it to the top, and I'll put earmuffs on the bottom so that I'm pushing water up. I'm putting water in through the top, fire that thing off. I'll let it run just on the hose without the salt off till it warms up.
Yep.
Get that thing warmed up a little bit. Hit the top dial of the salt off dispenser, and it sends that salt off through there as everything's warm and heated up. And you don't have to run your engine for 20 minutes. This is minutes. That engine comes to temp quick. Real quick. Because you'll go real wrong real quick if it ain't getting water to it.
Yep.
So it's a situation to where just stuff like that.
Here's what it does on our motors at 800 hours.
Yeah.
You're supposed to check the thermostats or change the thermostats.
Yeah, not even check them, change them.
Yeah, and change out the head zincs.
Yep.
The zincs, the sacrificial anodes that are within the motor block itself. And what I've found is by running the salt off, I can get double the life out of my thermostats and double the life out of my head zincs. The last time I went in, they were like, we didn't change them.
Right.
They looked like they just came out of the box almost. They were, almost perfect.
Right.
And so that tells you that doing what we do and running that salt off applicator and allowing it to kill all of those deposits and strip them out of there, and you keep your motor almost brand new. That's a lot of money saved.
And for general use, for somebody to hear 800 hours, they're like, wow, that's like a lifetime and a half of most people's use of an engine. That's a year and a half for us.
Yeah, or less.
2 years. We burn through hours, and there is upsides to that in that you don't have that lasting long salt. It's always moving, always doing. But in the same aspect, you still get wear time on every single one of those parts, and your ability to do easy general maintenance that saves you so much in the long run. So much in the long run.
That's it.
Plus Starbright, the Project C Safe, you gotta give them some props all the way around.
Oh, definitely. Now you have been let's talk about that for a couple of minutes. You have been involved now with helping with a mangrove restoration effort.
Yeah.
And I've dropped off multiple bags of plastic bottles over at the Red Wine South.
Yeah.
They're probably thinking, who's bringing another bag?
Where are these bottles
Who's bringing another
from?
bag of garbage and setting it in my front yard? Because I normally drop it off after church because they live just down the street from where I go to church there on Merritt Island, and but what are you guys exactly doing with these plastic bottles?
Right. So this is all in underneath the umbrella of the New Swell Mangrove Restoration project, and it was the birth child of the Red Wines of Corey, and I'm kind of helping fill in and do work for it too. And ideally, what we're doing in general is restoring mangrove shorelines. That's what we're gunning for. And it doesn't matter if it's a causeway in the government or it's somebody that just moved in and sees their other neighbors have mangroves and they want mangroves. And, it spans a large different thing. And for the plastic bottles, which we put a call out for them, and a lot of us guides, heeded the call, and we got plenty of bottles. So if you're still getting us bottles, we're good for right now.
You're good for a while.
We're all right now. But what we actually do is we actually start the mangroves in that, and it allows for the root ball to kind of mature a little bit just in water without any other substrate. And it's just a simple way to, recycle basically those plastic water bottles that we all tend to use way too much.
That was the one thing that I was shocked about was how many and how quickly I collected a garbage bag of bottles. I mean, it was basically once a week. And it was, holy cow! Between me and my customers that get on the boat, we are using a lot of plastic product.
There's definitely an opportunity in there for a Ingle or somebody else to pump out to guides a singular jug that we can give people little cups or something. I don't know what we could do, but something's got to change with it. I've tried different things, and I don't know.
I have a water bottle that I typically bring with me. That's about 28 ounces or so. Little screw on top, and I wash it out and refill it every day. But you don't always remember to bring that, and so having water on the boat for the customer, a lot of times that becomes my water as well, because I keep 6 or 8 or 10 of them on the boat at all times in the cooler. But there's a lot of plastic being used out there that I didn't really realize how much I was using.
Yeah.
But going back to so are you doing red mangroves, white mangroves, black mangroves?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any challenges to one versus the other?
The white mangrove is by far the hardest to grow. Okay. Black mangrove would be a close second to the challenging nature of growing that plant. Red mangrove seems to be the easiest across the board.
Now, which is the most beneficial for the environment?
Well, it all depends. In a true natural shoreline,
you have all three.
You would have all three.
Yeah.
And what you would have is the black and the white mangroves, kind of a little bit more terrestrial, kind of a little bit more up on land, still in the water, still willing to be full on in water.
Yeah.
But that has more of a traditional root structure, like a tree. The black mangrove and the white mangrove are almost indistinguishable, except for the black mangrove has snorkel roots, those roots that come up. That,
little propules, or whatever they call
pop
those
up
things.
out of the ground, and it'll be a whole ground cover of them.
Yeah.
Well, that root structure is what holds dirt in place, what will stop erosion and hold a shoreline in place. Then that red mangrove is the long, walking, looking prop roots that come hanging down. And that's more of your water side. And that gives you that cover in the water for fish.
And they're the initial wave break.
And if you think about it, it's a lot like Sebastian Inlet, where you have the outside pilings and then the inside, it disperses the wave.
Yeah.
And then it, allows for the stuff behind it to not be as jostled by the wave. Just like those concrete things they're trying to put in the water up there. They could have just had us plant a whole bunch of mangroves instead. Would have made it right.
Yeah. Well, guys and gals, we're going to be right back after this last break with the last segment of Catch Your Memory Outdoors for today. And myself, Jim Ross, and, of course, our special guest, Captain Alex Gorichky. So don't go away. Appreciate you sticking through to the last segment of the show. This segment is brought to you by Strike Zone down in Melbourne. And if you guys haven't been to Strike Zone before Christmas, hopefully somebody you love or somebody that loves you got you a Strike Zone gift card. And so now you can go after Christmas. Well, here's the cool thing. No matter if you got a gift card or not, here's the cool thing that's going on right now. So they've extended their Christmas special. Check this out. Shimano Stratic reels, either the 3,000 or 4,000 Stratic reel on a Bull Bay artillery rod for $100 off.
Yeah, solid combo.
Normally $470, now $370. So $369.99, $100 off of that combo. That's an incredible combo. Pelagic boots, regularly $120, regularly $99 to $120, $59. Danco pliers, super cheap. The plier and fillet knife combo, I should say, was at $34.99, regularly $49.99. So that's 15 off. The Pin Battle 3 DX, which is one of my favorite reels, and you guys and gals have heard me talk about that DX series of Pin Battle for a couple of years now that I've been using them on an 8-foot Fenwick Elite Series rod. Now this is your cobia, pier, tarpon, even kind of light tarpon rod. The 6,000 size would be much better suited for tarpon than the 5. Regularly $400 for that combo, $249.99.
Yeah.
$150 off. That's a heck of a sale. P-line plier and sheath, regularly $45, $19.99. And
You'll buy about 15 of those.
I'm telling you,
constantly
as many as I
pliers
go
in
through.
the river.
Shimano Vanguards, the 2500 through 5000 size reel on the 7.6 Bull Bay Real Animal Series rods. Once again, $369.99. So just some fantastic prices. Finnor glasses for $100. Gift purchases, you've got Olakai, you get free wet and dry bag. Costa sunglasses, you get a free gift, some kind of free gift purchase. Smith glasses, you get a free hat and shirt. Pin, anything pin, you get a free hat with a purchase. AFCO, free hat with a purchase. So lots of really, really cool stuff going on through the 31st.
Yeah.
I think Sean said through the 31st. So
New Year's Eve day.
yeah, as of January 1, no mas, no mo. You cannot get this deal.
That's some
So
pretty good deals
Man,
right
that's
there.
some incredible deals. And I just happened to get 2 gift cards for Strike Zone this year from people that actually love me. So guess what? I'm going to be down there checking this out. So hopefully I'll see you down there at Strike Zone sometime this coming week, and we'll save together. How does that sound? Alex, we were talking about mangrove restoration and how important that is, how the fish use it. So here's something that I've noticed in the last year to year and a half, and my customer reminded me of it yesterday. Had a great guy on the boat, a fellow named John, and he is down from Carolina. Fished with me 2 straight days in a row, full day trips. We had a lot of fun, caught quite a few fish, and we checked his box. We checked his snook box because he wanted a snook. So we got him a nice 28-inch snook and a couple of shots at smaller ones. Did get one smaller one that was about 18 inches, but we checked his bigger snook box, if you will. He is like, "What is that white stuff on the mangrove roots, on the red mangroves? Those that they're bringing those prop roots down." And I said, "Believe it or not, those are barnacles." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, because they're smaller than the barnacles we have up north. And I said, "Well, what's good about there's barnacles on the prop roots is 8 and 10 years ago, that was green slime, fungus, and sponges instead of barnacles.
Hard
crunchies. So I said, green slime doesn't do anything for the fish. Sponges don't do anything for the fish. Barnacles are filter feeders, which is helping to filter the lagoon, and they're food for the fish.
Yep.
Especially the drum and the sheephead. Those two in particular feed on barnacles and things that live in barnacles, little crabs, little shrimps. So when you look at the overall, I'm there's a lot of skepticism with where's all these millions of dollars going.
Yep.
Okay, throughout the general public here, we're paying a 0.5-cent sales tax to restore the Indian River Lagoon, but I'm not seeing it, guys and gals. I'm seeing it. I am seeing it.
There's another caveat to that, is that a lot of people that are saying they can't see it aren't willing to actually look and find it, because a lot of these big projects and stuff like that are costing big money aren't. They're not flashy. They're not pretty. They're not. You're not taking tours of dredge stuff. You're not doing those things.
They're a dredge site that you never can go to because it's on an island that you can only get to by boat.
Right.
And you can't go there anyway because they're working.
Right.
Or it's a baffle box that's on the end of a storm drain.
Right. And one of the things that I've seen in my travels in the Indian and Banana, but Indian especially, is and it's a direct result to or a direct correlation to citizen scientists, to people with canal front or riverfront homes, and other programs would be the oyster that we're seeing free grow right now. There is free growing oyster on every hard surface in the Indian River that you can look at right now. And I'm talking all around Titusville, all around Port St. John, all around North Merritt Island. You go look at the pilings, you go look at the rocks, there's free growing natural oyster, not put there. Now that is coming from us doing work, not us, me in general, but people hanging those baskets off their docks. These things are happening. Justin found those baby clams.
Yeah.
You know, I'm lucky enough to be doing a bunch of work with the clam restoration stuff now too, and working with UF and working with Blair and you know, these things that we're doing are having an effect, and
Definite.
and
it's positive effect.
right, and it's hard to quantify or even understand that if you're not just, oh, I see the water every other, you know, or every
I drive over the causeway.
I'm talking, we are literally in it
Yeah.
day
Waist
in,
deep.
day out,
Yeah.
nonstop, and you're seeing these things happen. The same with the grass, and Dr. Todd at UF, who is the science behind the clam project, and you know, he gave me the great explanation of the seed bank and how the seed bank works, and how out of nowhere, not because we went and planted a bunch of Widgeon grass everywhere.
Yeah.
No, naturally there was something there to oomph, you know, and with these programs that a lot of us are doing is we're just trying to kick that oomph, kick that spark and give it a little
push.
wake up over there,
Yep.
you know, go. And doing these things, we're seeing the changes that we want to see happen. Don't get me wrong. You can go to any neighborhood in all of Brevard County right now, and unless it's built within the last 10 years, I can guarantee you every bit of their stormwater goes right into the Flapping Lagoon.
Yeah.
Unabated, unstopped, unchecked, undone, anything.
Yeah.
That is a problem. Sewage dumps in Titusville to here, there, the other. These are problems.
Yeah.
These aren't I mean, there are problems that we can fix because we vote the people in that fix them.
Yep.
But that's not something that you personally can do. I can personally grow 10,000 mangroves in my backyard, and then at some point in time, in 2 to 3 years from now, I'm going to figure out somewhere they're going to go.
Yeah.
And they're going to be in that
They're
water.
gonna be
and
in
I
the
can
water.
guarantee you that. Even if I got to walk them down there and Johnny Appleseed them myself, they're going to be in that water.
So going back to that, you know, that half-cent sales tax, and should we vote for it for another 10 years? You know, should it be reissued by the citizens? And there's people out there going, I'm tired of being taxed. Are you tired of watching the improvements that are happening to the lagoon, or do you want it to stall? Okay, we're far past what we were 9 years ago, which was we were a cesspool.
Yeah,
that's what we were.
Yeah.
It was the rivers and lagoons were an absolute cesspool.
The problem was it was an unknown cesspool
Yeah.
to 95% of everybody.
Yeah.
And not
it wasn't until the freeze in 2016, not the freeze. It wasn't until the 2-day overcast,
the fish kill.
when the fish kill happened, because the 2-day overcast didn't allow any photosynthesis in the water. And what we had leading up to it that week, if you remember, how many mornings before the actual lagoon-wide fish kill in that March, how many days were you on the water where you saw the fish on the top sucking air until either the sun came up a little bit and photosynthesis started, and we started to get a little more oxygen in the lagoon, so the mullet and the snook in particular you would see sipping at the top, even the trout in some places sipping at the top, trying to suck air, because there was no oxygen left in the water. It was right at the tipping point for almost a week, and it was just above where they could tolerate it. And then when it would start to drop below, they'd start to suck air, but then the wind would pick up. It would create a little, little oxygen in the water. The photosynthesis would start, and they could survive another day. We had 2 full days of overcast, and we had no photosynthesis, and it was calm. There was no oxygen, and it crashed and killed everything. Long story short, all of these projects are coming back and creating a better opportunity for all of us.
There's breath in every conversation for, is this right? Is that right? Is it? Yeah. We do not throw out the baby with the bathwater. This is a good plan. It's a good idea. We keep it going.
Keep it going. Captain Alex Gorichky, appreciate you coming in. Local Lines Fishing Charters. Check out Captain Alex if you want to get a charter with him. Obviously, he is one of the best on the Space Coast. We appreciate you tuning in to this week's Catch Your Memory Outdoors.